Well, hello, everybody. It's Patricia Warby of Alchemy Therapies, My Emotional Audit, and soon to be published, Mind Medicine. In fact, it's going to be live from today. Um, so you can go onto Amazon and find my latest book, which is all about the promise of unconscious processing in healing. Because I think it's a really big part that's missed out of conventional medicine, and it's the bit that I access when I work with people is working on the kind of the stored emotional memories. Some people would call that trauma, which, yeah, it is. It's anything that you couldn't process at the time. And it sort of sits in your body, affecting your autonomic nervous system regulation, and it creates symptoms. And I wanted to talk about that, and I wanted to include some case studies as well, people that I've worked with, and some of the things that come up over and over again, because there are patterns to this. Okay, now we'll be talking more about that next week when I publish my interview with Jenny Lynn, who's another therapist that works in this arena. She's a hypnotherapist, I guess. Also, I don't know how else she'd describe herself, but maybe a spiritual healer, although she doesn't use spirit with a capital S, not that kind of spiritual, but a sort of groundedness, which she'll explain. But today, I very much wanted to talk about this book that I've just finished reading by Donald R. Hoffman, The Case Against Reality, subtitle, How Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes. Okay, it's a great title, actually, The Case Against Reality. I really like that. Um, and really, what he's talking about here is that reality, it turns out, or at least in his opinion, based on everything he knows, he's a cognitive scientist, but he also knows a lot about quantum theory, that we are living in a simulation, if you like, and that reality, as we perceive it, is really an interface. It's like the icons on your desktop. You know, when you want to click for your email, you click the email icon and up pops your email application. But it isn't that the icon is the data, it's simply a way of accessing the data. And that's really what he's saying in his interface theory of perception, ITP. He's very fond of acronyms, is Donald. He also has another acronym, which is FBT, which he uses a lot. Fitness beats truth. All right. So his theory here is that your senses, in particular vision, which is the main sense that most of us use for interacting with the world, but there's also obviously hearing and touch and smell. I shouldn't forget smell because that's a really important one. But that the eyes don't give you information about the reality of the world. They give you what you need in order to survive. And that's sort of in evolutionary biology, that's called fitness. It's got nothing to do with pumping iron down the gym. It's a sense of being fit for purpose in order to reproduce. And so fitness beats truth is his sort of statement, overarching statement of what he believes our senses give us is this necessary interaction with the world as it is in order that we can reproduce, survive, and evolve. Now, there are copious examples in the book of how we do that. There are some lovely visual examples. There's a series of plates. You don't often see this in a book anymore. Color plates in the middle. Way long time ago, folks, before printing became, easy and everybody could do it and you could self-publish. Publishers often would avoid printing in color because it was really expensive, but you would often have in old-fashioned books, you'd have a series of plates in the middle on smooth paper. And that's exactly what they've done here, which is just so interesting. So right in the middle of the book, things that needed to be printed in color have been printed on these series of really shiny pages with some great examples of visual perception and how our eyes not just reflect what they're seeing, but make a judgment or a perception of whether that's something we move towards or away from. And in particular, I think I'll show you the hat, because the hat is really interesting. So these two colors, there's a brown here, or it appears to be brown or sort of pale yellow, and then a brown here. And apparently they're exactly the same color tone because he color matched them. But because our eyes are adjusting for the shadow at the front, this one appears lighter. I mean, you've probably come across some of those little optical illusions, we might call them, before, but this is the first time I've seen somebody really focus in on why and how our bodies do this. Now, in the main, this book is dense. One of the problems I had with it is the size of the type, which, you know, I guess if you wear glasses, that's no problem. I don't. I can read that very clearly in daylight, but at nighttime I was really struggling. It's tiny. The index is even tinier. You know, so I wonder, could it have been a different book? This is a Penguin in the UK. I'm sure, I think in the US it's a different publisher and a slightly different cover. Whether it could have been, I think, slightly less wordy. He does tend to repeat himself quite a lot, certainly in the middle part of the book. And, you know, saying the same thing in slightly different ways. And I started to get the feeling this is padded and, you know, could have been shorter with larger type. That would be my only comment. But it is an important book in terms of what it's saying, that this interaction that we have, that we believe there's a separate reality out there that we interact with, is actually completely and utterly disproven now. In the last 100 years, we've had quantum theory, which describes things that are really weird, like the fact that matter can be both a particle and a wave. So photons, light particles, can also act like waves. So can electrons and protons, it turns out, depending on how we measure them, because there's something about the interaction with measurement or a conscious awareness, what Donald calls conscious agents, that's us, or anything that we use to measure, collapses the wave function, that's what it's called, and creates the simulation of matter. And so, you know, my jersey here or the table that I'm sitting at are simulations of matter, where actually they are energy in sort of slow vibration. And, you know, the energy of my fingers touching, appearing to touch them, is actually being repelled by the energy of what appears to be matter. Now, if that hasn't blown your mind, I don't know what will. But I mean, this is accepted science now. It has been for, 120 years, really. And so he's kind of developing that cognitively. What does that mean for us as human beings? And in the main, I really I admire the book. I wouldn't go as far to recommend it, because it is quite dense. I mean, it's not for everybody. There were moments where I simply got lost. It was a rather dispassionate book. I guess that's the scientific left brain mindset. But, you know, he's an important thinker and philosopher. I absolutely agree. And if you want to come across his ideas in a more accessible format, some of the conversations he's had with other philosophers and scientists like Bernardo Kastrup and Federico Fellini, I can't remember his surname, but there's lots on YouTube where Donald Hoffman is talking to people and sort of sharing his ideas. And with Roger Penrose and various other people, that kind of discusses these ideas in a way that perhaps the layperson is more likely to understand. And that's not by any means saying don't go and buy the book. If you find science interesting, I think you'll get a lot out of it. There are some issues I had. I mean, he talked at one point about the idiocy of the fact that the mammalian eye is the retina is the wrong way round, according to him, in that it's sort of like reverse skin. The optical rods and cones are actually the last layer underneath all the blood vessels and nervous tissue. So it's like in some eyes, in I think octopi and other animals, the rods and cones are on the top layer, so they receive the light first. And in the mammalian eye, it's the last layer, which he called unintelligent many times. Unintelligent. Now, for those of you who know me, I'm coming round to the idea that the lived experience, the human experience, is extremely intelligent. The human body is unbelievably complex, and it's adapting on the fly. I mean, that was the result of a review actually I did, which was this book, Understanding Living Systems, which I talked about, which showed you that there is no unintelligence in the system. There are iterations, and as evolution goes ahead, it kind of creates new options, and the ones that stick are the ones that then become the line that develops. And so it occurred to me, now hang on a minute, there's a reason why the retina would have survived invertebrates up to and including us the wrong way round. And so I just did a little bit of investigation in that, because I've heard of that before. And it seems that the reason why this is happening is because when you have more feedback in the system through the nervous tissue and the blood vessels, there's more parallel processing of information. And so it isn't unintelligent, it has its own intelligence that we just haven't asked the right questions for. And so that's just something that jumped out at me, was that, no, I don't think that's correct. And there is a good reason. And you can Google it if you're interested, why the retina is this way round in vertebrates, because it seems supremely successful in allowing us to perceive our environment. Okay, the other thing to kind of say is that it really supports the notion that consciousness is the supreme underlying driver of everything that is, the universe, the cosmos, our place in it, evolution, and that matter is not primary. And this is what he calls an idealistic notion. So each position that a philosopher has on the nature of reality, you claim a position. So you could be a monist, you could be a realist. So there's the sense of ideas being, or the mental construct of the universe as being primary. That's what idealism means. It means ideas, or the mental, is supreme. Consciousness is what drives the world as we know it. Matter is subordinate to consciousness. Now, that's a very important understanding. It's one that philosophers and scientists debate, but it solves what's called the hard problem of consciousness, because for years, neuroscientists have been battling this idea. How is it that the firing of neurons in your brain creates the subjective experience of being that we all experience as real? You know, that I am, and I interact with this world, and I have thoughts and feelings and emotions. And it's been almost impossible to resolve. There have been various theories that it's a quantum effect, a sort of resonance effect, but nobody has really satisfactorily been able to say it's what this does that creates the quality of being. But if we reverse the order in which the universe is constructed and make consciousness primary, then there is no need to explain how matter would produce consciousness, because consciousness is already there. Anyway, these are philosophical questions. They're also very hard fought scientific questions right now. If you are in biophysics or quantum physics or quantum mechanics, But without getting too deeply into that, that's really what Donald is tuning into here. And his conversations with other physicists are really the place I would direct you to go. That's not to say that writing about this stuff isn't really important. And I'm certainly glad I bought the book, but it's probably not one I will return to, because, as I say, it goes over and over similar things. So, folks, there is a lot of new information out there that does actually impact us in some way. Now, whatever position you believe you hold on the nature of reality doesn't really, to be fair, affect you on a daily basis. But when you're working with healing, it absolutely does, because you have to disconnect, if you like, from this virtual simulation that you're running in order to connect with an inner knowing. Perhaps you would call it your intuitive sense, or perhaps you would call it the collective unconscious, depending on where you come from, what sort of school of thought you come from. So it is actually an important piece of the puzzle to understand that we are creating our sense of self on the fly through our interaction with our perceived awareness of what's around us. And so our beliefs, our thoughts, and our emotions do actually create our reality. And that's what I work with on a daily basis when I'm helping people to heal. And so we've got to get out of the fixity mindset that says there's a problem in the machine that we need to fix mechanically. That is not healing. Healing is coming into alignment with wholeness. And I'll be developing that theme a lot more next week. So watch out for my fabulous conversation with Jenny Lynn, who I came across recently in an interview she did on another channel, and was so blown away by what she had to say. I just had to grab this woman, and it's taken me 3 months to do so. And I finally, we've recorded a conversation. So that'll be next week, folks. Looking forward to hearing your reactions on that. But for the meanwhile, I'll say goodbye for now and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.